Welcome back, guys. So in the previous video we were looking at this example where a user is prompted to enter a mark. The mark is stored in the dmark variable, and then we check if the mark is below 45, it's between 45 and 50, and so forth. If you didn't see this example, please go back to my previous video and catch up there. So like I said on my previous video, we don't want a situation whereby you exit the program and then you run it again in order to enter another mark. So we would like to have a loop. So in this video we will be doing a while loop. Start with a while loop. We'll do a do while loop and a for loop. These are the three loops we're gonna look at, right? So what is a while loop? Basically a while loop and a do while loop, they are more or less the same, they do the same job. So we would like to ask the user if they would like to enter another mark, and then if they press Y on the keyboard, the code will start again from the top going down, again the same steps, right? So the structure of a while loop. First, let me just declare an integer I is equals to, let me just put it at 1. So when we start to declare a while loop, you will write while open brackets I is equals to 1. Then you open these curly brackets and let's close it there. So this means as long as I is equals to 1, then it will run this thing again. When it gets here at the end of the curly brace, it will then check again. It will actually go up and check again. Is I equals to 1? If I is equals to 1, it will run again. And then this loop will break only if I is another value. We will choose 1 and 0. So 1 will be a yes and a 0 will be a no. So to change the value of I, we would actually request the user if they would like to enter another mark. Let's say console.write enter another mark. Let's just put this here, and then we will store the user input. Let's call it C answer is equals to console.readKey.keyChar. So what this basically does is, this line of code, you will read the user input, but now you want to store the value, the keychar, the character value, right? And let's take it to an uppercase. Let's say C upper is equals to character dot to upper, then inside the brackets we put C answer. So the only time we will use this C answer is to convert it to an uppercase, so that we don't have a situation whereby a user entered a small y and then the code is confused because the small y and a capital 1, they are not the same. They're not the same thing, right? Then you check with an if statement. If C upper equals to n, then we would like to change the value of I to 0. So it means if you press N on the keyboard, the value of I will be 0, and it will, when it goes up again to check the condition here, it says if I while I is equals to 1, and in this case after you press N, the value will be 0, so it will be false. So the loop is gonna break, and then we will come here again. We will be on that line of code. So to test it out, .NET run it's a bit slow as usual. Right, so let's end in 85. We should get a pass with distinction. enter another mark, you press Y, enter 14, enter another mark. Here, let me just check if, okay, I have caps on here. So I'm just gonna press Y, caps on, 14, and then with my caps off, as you can see, my caps is off. I press Y, it's doing the same thing. And then when we press N, then we exit the loop, right? So that's basically how a while loop works. And a do while loop is basically more or less the same. With a do while loop, you just put, let me just copy this here. You say do, then here you just put the condition that we initially had at the top there. So do everything here while I is equals to 1. This is going to have the same effect as a while loop, just a while loop. So just to test it out, reassessment, I press Y, 10, failed, then I press N. So it basically has the same effect. So we did a while loop and a do while loop. So now let me just so now let's develop a program whereby you want to enter 10 marks and then get the average of those 10 marks, right? So we will say we will do this with the for loop. So we want to enter 10 marks. So a for loop basically has a counter which checks also that is I equals to this condition that we've put there. If it's not, it's gonna run again until such time that the value that I reaches that value. So for a for loop, we'll say for int I is equals to 0. Put that I is less than 10, right? Then I plus plus. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but indexing in C# starts at 0. So you don't have 1 up to 10, you have 0 up until 9, for instance. So you will start everything from 0. That's the indexing. Even for your arrays and stuff, the index will always start with a 0, right? So let me just explain this. For here you declared an I variable, an integer, it's I, the variable name is I, you give it a value 0. So you check I, this is the condition now, right? I is less than 10. So this means that if I is less than 10, let's run this, the code that we're gonna put in here. If not, if it's greater than 9 actually, or it's 10 above, then the loop is gonna break. We're gonna reach the end of our loop, and here we are just incrementing our I. So when the loop first runs, it's gonna say 1, no, it's gonna say 0, and then reaches this curly brace, and then starts again, checks the I. Actually, let me just explain it this way. So it will first check for I is equals to 0, I is less than 10, and then increment I, right? This is the last to run. So it will first run whatever code we have in here, then reaches curly brace. It will increment the I. So I will no longer be 0, it will be 1. And then it will check, is I less than 10? True is true. It would be true if we increment it by 1 the second time around. And then it will run the code again. When it reaches this curly point, this curly brace, it will say, it will increment again. So I will be equals to 2. And then it checks the condition until such time that we reach 10. So suppose we have 9 here. When we reach here, our I is 9. So it will increment, say I plus plus, so our I will be 10. Then it will check, is I less than 10? It will find the condition false, and the whole loop will break. Console.write. Let me just say enter mark. My apologies. We said that our program is to record everyone's mark and then find an average, right? So we should have a D mark here equals to, okay, let's just leave it there. Let's just give it a value 0, right? Then our dmark plus equals to double dot parse console dot read line. So this piece of code here we have our dmark as 0, right? So the plus equals to here, it means that add on top of whatever is in our dmark variable of our variable name. Add whatever we get there on top of it. So it's an addition. Similarly, if you have a subtract here, it will be subtract the number that we get here, subtract it from whatever is in there. So you don't necessarily replace the value. If we, for instance, we just leave it at that, so it means every time the loop runs, we will have a new value. It will not add anything, it will just be a new value. So in this case, we want to add, right? So our loop will run. That's just what we need here. Let me just check. It's console enter mark, and then we get our mark, then try. Good. So, and then we declare another d, we'll call it average. A is equals to dmark, but by 10 we get our average, then we write it to the output. Average is our df.toString. Let's test this code. So the code should run 10 times. Or let me just make things simple, and then we run it 5 times, right? We get our average. So we'll just run it 5 times so that we can keep track of the number of times it runs without counting too much. Right? So the first mark will be a 45, will be 10, will be 95. Let's choose a 55 and a 65. As I've said, it will run only 5 times, then we get our average. Just for keeping your code clean, suppose you don't want to have an enter mark here all the time, you just want to have enter mark 1, enter mark 2, and so forth. So what you would do here is just, you can concatenate I plus 1. Let me explain this. So our I is 0, right? Our I is 0. So if you say enter mark plus medium mess here, let me say enter mark 1 plus that. Okay, so the code will say enter mark, then it will be a 0 here, enter mark 0. We don't have mark 0, we are humans, so we will have enter mark 0 plus 1, so it will be a 1 here, and then you get your 1 and 2. The next time the code is gonna run, this will become a 1, and you will say 1 plus 1, it will be a 2, enter mark 2, and so forth. 75, 12, 10, 96, and 100. There we get our average, right? I hope this video helped you guys, and if you need me to clarify something, just put it on the comments there and I will attend to it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys.